Relationships aren't always sunshine and rainbows. Just like in nature, you can't have rainbows without a little rain.
Journey with us
Shani Goodson.
and Dr. Sunjata as we share stories and insights about our thriving, unconventional love life and our unique take on relationships and consensual non-monogamy. Hey.
What's up?
Welcome back to another episode of Sunshine and Rainbows.
Always good to be here.
Yes, always good to be with you to talk about all of the wonderful roller coastery, complex, nuanced topics in the world of consensual non-monogamy and polyamory.
That's definitely one thing we're going to give you some nuance,
Gonna give you
some
that nuance.
complexity.
Indeed. And yeah, so let's start with a check-in like always. How are you doing today? How are you doing for this episode?
I am doing pretty well. I'm always happy to try to talk about these things, especially for the newbies out there.
Yeah,
If
this
you
is a
just
good newbie topic.
Yeah, if you're kind of curious, I hope we can help you. I'm
Yeah.
I'm feeling helpful.
Okay.
How are you
Okay.
feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. I just had an energy drink and I'm feeling like, let's get into it.
Oh, you're on the green.
Right?
Hulk. Mm.
Yeah. How y'all feeling? How are you feeling as you watch the episode? I never asked that. I never asked how y'all are doing, and I'm doing that now. So let us know in the comments. Like, what's your energy? How you feeling as you take in this episode today?
So what are we talking about?
So for today's topic, we're talking about avoiding some of the common pitfalls in polyamory.
And this is just from what we've noticed, some of our own experiences, yes,
Hmm.
but also like a amalgamation, a conglomeration of many experiences that we've either heard about or been, consulted about. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, and hopefully some of you who are unlike me, where I need to learn by doing, some of you may be like Shani, where she took like a whole year of just observing, being in different polyamorous groups and spaces and reading and learning. And hopefully some of you who are also doing that, this can help you avoid some things that I ran smack dab into and had to deal with all the fallout. Before I learned the lesson.
I will say a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I have not really experienced personally, but have witnessed. Witnessed either digitally or in real life,
Hmm.
both. So I'll try to talk about the ones that I've actually experienced. But he's like he said, I'm a little bit more careful. I'm more of like a research type person. I don't know. I'm not super hard headed.
Yeah. Before we get into the episode, so I want to just point out, y'all, I'm wearing, my hair is covering it, right? But I'm wearing one of the I love y'all tees. Make sure y'all go to loveyall.com if you want to be, a representation of love in the world. Loveyalltees.com.
Yeah. So what's the first uh pitfall we want to warn people about?
So this idea of, couples, partners, married couples coming into these polyamorous spaces
To date
together to
together.
date together. Y'all are seeking one person
Oh Lord.
that's gonna like and love both of y'all at the same rate, in the same way, and that's your expectation.
You might notice a pattern like about how we feel about this topic because I feel like it's come up many times.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because I wouldn't say we're anti triad at all.
Hmm.
And especially not him. Okay. Like he's not against having a triad, and neither am I. And we actually have like some triad dynamic energy in our lives. But when you come into this space specifically looking to date together and saying that the two of you are a package deal, you are setting yourself up for heartache. You are setting yourself up for difficulty, and not just for yourself, but for whoever you're trying to bring into the relationship.
Hmm.
So, and you could talk a little bit about like why you think that is.
Yeah, because again, y'all, it's hard to find one person that any given person can like find attractive, find intellectually stimulating, find shared values and interests with. So the idea that someone's going to find that in two people at the same time, is like so hard to do. It is so hard to do. And oftentimes what we've seen is that, when the couples come in dating together, that other person um likes one of them and will agree to the dynamic, and then once it starts happening, one of the the original couple feels like slighted, feels left out, feels like, why am I not getting the same energy you're getting? As if love and relating is like really just transactional, and that there's no like real human emotion or feelings or like attractive organic feelings that are a part of that. They expect this person to come in and be able to flip a switch that says, I'm going to give both of you equal interest, equal time, or I'm going to start liking you, loving you, being attracted to you equally. And that's like, it's just so unrealistic.
Yeah, and the idea that the two of you are like a package deal, it really reinforces couples privilege because the two of you will always have each other and you're always going to prioritize each other. But this third person who you're seeking is always going to be outvoted because the two of you come together, right? The two of you are a package deal. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle in trying to find this dynamic is because they are so stuck on being a package. You have to want us both. We are we are a thing. So it's still a couple, right? Except that one part of the couple is two people,
Hmm.
and that third person is all alone, and a lot of times couples really fail to understand why the third woman, the third, oh, when people say I'm seeking a third, it makes me cringe so much. But why that third might not be interested in such a situation, especially once they find themselves in the situation and they don't have the autonomy that they might want to have,
Hmm.
because if the two of you are a package deal, that severely limits that person's autonomy, um, in a lot of ways, because now she can't interact with one of you without interacting with the other. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure. As somebody who has been like pursued in that role, I feel that pressure. I have felt that pressure for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So another pitfall is coming into polyamory because monogamous relationships have failed for you, and or your monogamous relationship is on the rocks. So now you're coming in as a couple expecting like polyamory to be some like savior
Fix your
to
problem.
fix your problems or to stop cheating, etc. Like whether you're a single person who's coming in because you've had trouble in monogamy, or the couple coming in to fix something, both things I wouldn't say are the best reason to try being in this space.
I agree. I think, there are some people who come to this space because their monogamous relationships have not felt complete or have not felt fulfilling. I think that's different from coming to polyamory because monogamy didn't work for you. Like this idea that, oh, I tried monogamy, now let me just try polyamory. I think that's kind of where the trouble comes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to couples, one of the things that I've seen just from again observing, coaching folks is that a lot of couples will come in because there was some infidelity in a relationship, and this feels like it's a way that their partner can cheat under control. And what we've learned is that people in polyamorous relationships can cheat, because really what cheating is rooted in is just not being honest. And the whole idea of consensual or ethical non-monogamy is that we are honest about what we're doing, and honest, and communicating. It takes a lot of communication, and oftentimes cheaters just don't have the spoons, the capacity, the bandwidth, or desire to communicate openly about how they're moving through the world. And guess what? That comes over into their polyamorous dynamics as well. And there's absolutely been situations where folks have been shocked and disappointed, and even surprised that it's like, we're in this space and this person is still cheating.
I think the next pitfall is that we're going to talk about is this idea of taking mononormative rules and copy pasting mononormativity into polyamory, like using rules to manage emotions.
Mm,
And I think that's a lot of what you're talking about in what we were just talking about, like coming to polyamory because your monogamous relationship failed.
mhm.
I think a better reason to come to polyamory is because you are trying to unlearn mononormativity, or you have unlearned mononormativity. And a lot of people come into, that's why the previous one is a pitfall, right? If you come to monogamy, to polyamory because your monogamy failed, you're probably still carrying a lot of mononormativity over with you. And that just doesn't go well for your own heart and other people's hearts as well. This idea of using rules and control
Yeah.
to try to um manage yourself, right? To manage your own emotions. Like, I'm feeling jealous, so you can't do this anymore. That is using rules, right? And we could talk a little bit about what rules, the
Yeah.
difference between rules and agreements.
Yeah, but even before getting there, I just think it's important to the reason why this has an impact is because, if your married partner or whatever is out there dating someone and then you pull like a veto rule, like I'm feeling really jealous right now, so you got to stop that relationship. And they're dating someone who's polyamorous, who's putting all their emotions on the line and they're catching feelings. And now
Ouch.
this married person is like, I got to stop dating you because my wife is feeling, scared. Like you're hurting people. Y'all are causing harm in this space. This is a space of openness and openness and love and connection. It's not just physical intimacy. Even if that becomes a part of it, people are putting their feelings on the table in the polyamorous dynamics. And, you just have to understand that there's an impact, to
Definitely.
this.
I've seen I've seen like posts, especially in groups where somebody is like, I've been dating this person for 6 months. I was so in love with them, and their spouse is losing it over our relationship, and so they ended things with me, and I'm devastated.
Mm-hmm.
I am heartbroken. I thought this was my person. I thought this was going to be so that kind of playing with people's emotions for sure is harmful. And that's part of the reason why the idea of rules, where you're trying to control someone else's behavior, is harmful to me.
Yeah.
And if I see somebody using rules in their relationship, especially if they're doing so without the awareness that they are in fact rules,
Yeah.
that's a red flag to me.
Yeah.
I would rather see people using agreements,
Yeah.
which are still not written in stone.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I was gonna say next.
a lot of times people will say, "Oh, that's an agreement and you broke the agreement and you're a
Hmm.
horrible person and you're a cheater and blah blah blah." But
Yeah.
even agreements are can be iterated and
Yeah.
can be broken, and there are lots of reasons why agreements might be broken. And I think I'm more uh I'm unlearning mononormativity in the way that I'm no longer thinking about rules to manage my emotions or to manage anything
Yeah.
really, and more into trying to find things that feel good for both people,
Yep.
that we can both agree to, but also, I'm going to use Sunjata's phrase, are good enough for now and safe enough to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the reality, y'all. Um, we're human, right? We're human and we're constantly learning things about ourselves. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, relationships are our greatest teachers and they're our greatest mirrors. And we learn different things about ourselves from different people that we're in relationship with. So there may be things about your partner or your spouse that you know about them because y'all have been relating and communicating for many years. Your partner, but you and your partner and spouse have a certain dynamic, have a certain energy based on who you are together. And that can only be created when you two are together. But when you or your partner starts relating with someone else, that's going to be a new mirror. They're going to learn different things about themselves within the context of that relationship that's going to bring out different things within themselves. So now what often happens is an agreement that you two made may not fit within the dynamic of what's emerging within that new relationship that you or your partner, your love is creating with someone new. And it's unfair to hold them accountable to an agreement that you two have in a totally separate relationship. That is, it's unfair, it's unethical. It doesn't take into consideration the humanity of the other person, right? And it just doesn't fit in the context of polyamory, where we're talking about love and full relationships. So one of the things that I took on and I felt like I came into this space with early on is the idea that I don't want any agreements. When I start joining these groups and people were talking about agreements and rules and all these different boundaries and all these different things, it made sense to me very early on, just based on my needs, that the only agreement that I want to have with anyone I relate to is that they're going to do what makes them happy. Like that's literally the only agreement. Do what makes you happy. I'll adjust because I understand that any feelings of envy, any feelings of jealousy or fear are my work to do. And if it comes up that me and someone aren't compatible in any type of way, then we can transition. We don't have to relate. We don't have to cause any each other harm. We don't have to put shackles on each other. I don't want that. I want liberation. I want freedom. I want fun. And anything that feels controlling and like a cage, I don't want it. So yeah, something to think about, y'all.
So the next pitfall that we're going to talk about is this idea of expecting equality in relationships versus equity. This is actually always one that's kind of hard for me. So maybe you can like, what do you think about this one?
Yeah. So this is the bean counting energy. This is when someone is clocking your every move, or when you're clocking your partner's every move. And it's like, okay, they went to the movies today. You owe me a movie. Um, you went to this restaurant with her or him. You need to go to that restaurant with her or with me. Like you spent this much time on the phone. We need to spend this much time talking. It's like everything you do has to be on some equal tip or you're not, they don't love you as much, etc. And even as I'm saying it, I'm realizing like, everything to me, I'm noticing it comes back to hopefully folks are recognizing the inner work that needs to be done. The traumas that are going to be uncovered, the wounds, the childhood wounds that are going to be uncovered, living this love style and but just owning it and being willing to do the work.
It's so this is such a like um this is murky waters for me because I think I can understand when you see somebody else getting what you desire, that it can stir up feelings of jealousy, of envy. And I think that besides like inner work, so, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you never, every time they go on vacation, they always go on vacation with that other person. I can understand why you would be like, well, why can't we go on vacation? Right? Like, I want to go on vacation with you. I want to experience the vacation version of you. So I can understand why people feel the way they feel. And I don't necessarily think it always has to do with inner work. I do think sometimes you can feel an imbalance and bring it to the person who you love and say, hey, I don't really feel like this is balanced, because they might not even have been thinking about it, right?
Mhm.
They might have just defaulted to that person, especially if that person they've been in a relationship longer. They might just default to that person as their natural vacation partner because that they're so enmeshed or whatever. And now you brought it to their attention and they're like, oh, you know what? We should go on a trip together. And now you get to kind of have what you want. Two, I do understand what you're talking about with the bean counting. And sometimes I do think it's hard not to bean count, especially when you feel like there's not balance. If you feel like balance is lacking, it gets hard not to bean count. So, what do you think is like the difference between equality and equity? Like, what's that to you?
So man, when it comes to, I think basically what you just described, it's not expecting the same. It's just expecting balance. It's expecting like, you know that I'm showing interest in our relationship in the ways that our relationship vibes, and that I'm showing interest in that relationship in the way that relationship vibes. It's just no expectation that has to look the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about speaking to balance because um you know especially when, like you said, there's examples where, let's say someone's been like, they've had a long term, like let's say, Shani and I have been in a relationship for 3 years, and someone new comes along, and now NRE shows up, and let's just say because NRE is present, you know I'm only focusing on going on dates with this new person. I'm only focusing on like doing fun things and going on trips with this new person. And I'm not doing any of that with Shani. All of a sudden, or she notices a drop in my energy towards her, the quality times we spend together, then I feel like that's imbalanced, right? And I think that's fair to bring up.
Mhm.
You know, that's different than equality, where it's like every time you do something with that person, you got to do the exact same thing with me. You know, equity is just about making sure that, you know, the balance continues in a dynamic, and that you're not totally dropping off the attention, the time, the energy that you're giving to your established love because you got some new energy.
I think, for me, some advice that I would give people who are like feeling this type of energy is to try to keep your eyes on your own paper. Um, really, this feeling that things are not equal or equitable is rooted in comparison. You
Mm.
probably are spending too much time paying attention to what a relationship that doesn't involve you, you know? That's the way that I look at it, because there have been times where I might think to myself, oh, that's not fair. I wish I had that, or I wish we did more of this, or I wish I got an opportunity to be with you like that. I've expressed that to Shinjata before. And I think for me, I have to start getting out of my own like comparison
Hmm.
energy. But for me, equality and equity are very difficult to parse out. And the one you talked about where you're giving a lot of attention to the new person, I feel like the opposite also happens, where a new person comes in and expects the same type of treatment that you give to someone who you're in a long-term relationship with.
Right.
And that is kind of right. That's not really possible, when you're talking about
Yeah, that's a
the
good example.
trust that has been built,
Hmm.
etc. You're not going to get the same treatment right up front. And a lot of times people will assume that because they don't get that treatment right up front, that it means that Sunjata means more to me than they do. And that's not the case. It's just we haven't built the history yet, etc. So when I think about equality and equity, I think about things in terms of
Hmm.
that, and like what's established between us, what's our flow already,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'll make breakfast for you, but maybe I'm not going to make breakfast for you because we haven't really built that flow yet.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing too that I think is important in this conversation is understanding that change, when someone new comes into, you know, your life, or one of your lives, it's going to change things. Yes, you're going to experience change, and it's important to you know, create space for that change, and not like experience that change as like, you know, the bottom is falling out of your current relationship because now, you know, your love is out, you know, a couple nights a week, whereas before y'all were home together all the time because one person is dating and one person isn't. And things like that can kind of come up in this type
Oh,
of,
that's a
you
good
know,
one.
conversation as well, around expecting equality in relationships. Like the
That's such a
reality
good one.
reality is, y'all, things are going to change. You have to hold space for that change. um and hopefully by us bringing these things up, it just creates, you know, room for you and your loves to have conversations and dialogue around these things, hopefully before it even happens, you know. And expecting like, you know, how, like, talking about how you're going to navigate these things together. It's not easy. It's going to take a lot of communication through it. We're going to mess up, and that's okay, but just keep communicating through it, y'all, because some of this stuff is just so hard, and it's really, you know, you don't really know how to work through it until you work through it.
That one that you just mentioned was a really good one, also about like the sometimes one person might be getting more like dating attention than the other,
Hmm.
and that can cause huge problems where if one person is constantly being you know, going out on new dates and getting a lot of attention, and the other person doesn't feel like they're getting as much,
Hmm.
that can definitely cause some huge comparison
Yeah.
and equality, equity problems.
Hmm.
Sometimes it might be brought up as a problem of imbalance when the problem is really what we just said, that there's
Yeah.
like an imbalance in how they're being perceived and pursued and attractive and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's a good one.
I like what you said though about keeping your eyes on your own paper. You know, focusing on your relationship, um, and not having unrealistic expectations around change. Those things are so important. You know, valuing, kind of shifting your lens, because we're transitioning out of mononormativity. So that alone time that you may get if your love is out on dates, like think about, what can I, you know, how can I spend some more time with myself? How can I value this me time? What can I do to, love on myself? How can I self-love and nurture myself, etc.? Like what practices can I develop that I didn't have space to before, now that we're in these dynamics? So it's about shifting that lens and trying and not seeing it as loss, but seeing it as opportunity, when you're noticing some of these changes as well. Hope you're enjoying this episode. Let's take a quick break to tell you about something that we've been working on.
We're excited to announce our course and coaching program, Relationship Bliss, where we help polyamorous people transform their relationships into highly compatible, peaceful, deeply aligned, and blissful partnerships.
We do this by sharing techniques for effective communication, deeper connection, and conflict resolution. The program offers a self paced course with 5 learning modules, 25 training videos, and live virtual coaching sessions with us, Shani and Sunjata.
Learn more at go-growdialogue.com.
Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
Yeah. Another pitfall we're going to talk about is um like taking dating too much. You go past your capacity or overload yourself or overextend yourself trying to date in this polyamorous space. I
Mhm.
think one of the things we always say is love is infinite, but time and resources are not,
Mhm.
right? Time is a finite resource, and so is money, and so is just like I said time, but I honestly really mean like hours of the day,
Yeah.
like hours of the week. These
Mhm.
aren't, this is finite, and
Yeah.
if you have children and a job and hobbies and you want to spend some time by yourself, it's very easy to overload yourself. Like sometimes I'll see people say, yeah, I think I can date up to like 6 people. And I'm like, man, you got space in your life for 6 people?
Yeah.
Some people do.
I was gonna say that
Okay.
some people do.
Some people have that capacity,
Yeah.
but I think you don't know what your capacity is until you've, done some feeling it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, not really much needs to be said about that, because I think that it's just the awareness that there is a capacity limit, and just be mindful. It's just something to be mindful about. Like, are you at the point where you're now causing harm in your established relationships with your family, your children, your work, your job, etc.? Just be mindful, just be careful. You know what I mean? To find that balance where you know you're not hurting other responsibilities and relationships, because it's like smorgasbord of opportunity out here now that you're in these, polyamory dating spaces.
Hmm.
So, okay, let's talk about the next one, which is avoiding conflict in the name of compersion. So, what does that mean to you?
Sometimes people will have problems, issues, but they don't want to bring them up because they don't want to be seen as a difficult partner. Um,
That lacks compersion.
right. They don't want to be seen as somebody who's not happy for their love, or they don't want to be seen as like the squeaky wheel. They don't want to cause any trouble. They don't want to cause any drama.
Hmm. Yeah, and here's the reality that I've learned: not everyone experiences compersion, and that's okay. You know, I don't need my love to have a compersion. Meaning, what's compersion? Me having like feelings of love for Shani, and excitement and happiness because Shani's experiencing new love. Compersion, which is something I do experience to a degree, but not everyone does. For some people, they're just neutral. They're just neutral. They don't experience compersion. It's not like they're trying to stop their love from dating new people or having fun experiences, but they're not all like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Tell me more, right? Not everyone's going to experience that. And again, some of those feelings of jealousy and envy may pop up, and some people may, sweep them under the rug until one day it blows up because they didn't just have a safe space or ask for space to express some of the hard feelings they're having, because they don't want to seem like they're not experiencing compersion. And what I've learned in my journey is that the most healing, nurturing thing for me when I'm experiencing jealousy and envy is to be able to talk to Shani about it. Not in a way where I'm trying to, stop her from doing anything or have any expectations that she'll move differently to coddle me, but just that understanding, it really helps. and I don't have to hide it from her. And I'll admit, at some points I did want to when I would experience those things. But Shani, through our relationship, has communicated with me that I don't have to. She's open to hearing it, and she's not gonna move differently. She's not gonna stop what she's doing just because I share, because I don't want her to do that.
And even, he said not everybody experiences compersion and some people are just neutral. Some people don't like when their partners go and find joy with other people. Now, that's, you know, that might lead to more parallel dynamics or more don't ask, don't tell dynamics. But I don't, is it valid? I think it is for the people who opt into that. So there are people who just don't even like it. They still feel strong possessiveness and jealousy. Um, and they also want freedom for themselves. Like people are complicated, people are contradictory, people
Yeah,
are messy. And as we try to work through this and unlearn all of this, I think it's important that we at least are able to talk about it. Um, that's the thing about polyamory. And this, I think we're going to get to this a bit later, but I think the number one way to avoid pretty much every pitfall we've talked about is communication,
yeah,
talking,
yeah.
and talking in a way that's not accusatory, talking in a way, using your nonviolent communication tactics.
Mm.
There's lots of, and we're going to get into that later
Yeah,
when we get into
exploring.
our relationship tool.
Yeah, just the energy of like, I'm experiencing some feelings and I would like to explore them with you,
Yes.
and creating a safe space for each other to do that.
For empathy and
Yeah,
understanding,
empathy and
not so
understanding.
much for proving yourself
Yeah.
or
Or
trying to
agreement.
get your point across,
Hmm. Or even agreement. You don't have to agree to
or
look
even agreement.
to understand, just to
Yeah,
listen to understand.
definitely. You don't have to agree with or even condone something to understand it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then another pitfall. This one, I think this is a good one to save for the last pitfall we're going to talk about because it's a big one.
Hmm.
It's expecting metas to be friends or even enemies,
Hmm.
right? It's expecting metas to have any kind of relationship
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, yeah.
Any expectation of a meta relate and metas, if you're new here and this is your first episode, because we have talked about what metamours are before, but they are the love of your love, right? Your love's love. That's who the
Or your
metamore
partner's partner.
or your partner's partner. And expecting metas to have any kind of relationship is definitely a pitfall in polyamory. I think that you should expect metas to have the same type of relationship you would expect anybody else to have, which is organic and authentic, and it's naturally forming. So if you're trying to make a meta relationship happen or you're trying to push metas to have a relationship of any kind,
Yeah.
it's probably going to be detrimental, and that includes the metas. Sometimes a metamor will come in expecting their meta to want to be their friend.
Hmm.
And sometimes metas will come into a situation expecting that their meta will not like them. So both of those things I think are equally harmful.
I agree, man. And and people mean well. Again, one of the complexities, a lot of people, oh, polyamory is like family, it's like village, it's multiple loves, many loves.
Guilty.
And it's like that's the, one of the attractive points of being in this. And it's like, if I'm dating him or her, they have someone else they love that maybe I can love too, or they will love me too. And it's just, one big happy village, one big happy tribe, family, etc.
And
And
I am so guilty of this.
yeah, same, same. And it's with good intention. It feels good and it means well, but there's a lot of human indoctrinated, mononormative norms that everyone is at a different place of unlearning that unfortunately can cause some tensions. And I think that people get hurt by their expectations when they come in expecting and wanting that and it doesn't show up.
You
Um,
took the words out of my mouth. Like for me, I have caused harm for myself. I've
yeah,
hurt my own feelings by expecting my metas to like me, to want to be around me. It's one of the biggest mistakes that I personally made, I think, in my earlier days of polyamory was that hope and that expectation that my meta was going to like me, want to hang out with me, and then when it didn't happen, feeling so like disappointed and so hurt that I'm not able to move on and form any kind of relationship with my meta because I'm still so like hurt and harmed by my own expectations.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of people come in thinking that's the way to do polyamory right,
That's
is by the idea that everyone has to be friends or connected in some way. or that there'll be some type of romantic dynamic between metas in some instances. Like, this is one of the so many hard lessons to learn, but this is one of the hardest lessons to learn. And if you're someone who's new or early and you're watching this, you're in such a good position to hear this right now, that the best, energy to take is the same way you would approach if a platonic friend introduced you to one of their other platonic friends. You wouldn't have any expectation that you and that person are going to be friends. None. And the hinge in that situation, the common friend in that situation, wouldn't have any expectation that y'all will be friends. Even if there's any type of like fleeting hope, those things are rarely like trust. And no one tries to force it. What ends up happening typically is like there's some type of event or situation where y'all get introduced, and then y'all might cross paths again down the line, and then ultimately a friendship may emerge if there's some natural like energy and alignment and like commonalities that kind of pop up. But if it doesn't, it just doesn't. And y'all just keep moving. And then whenever y'all see each other, sometimes it's like, it's just that natural, like, hey, what's up? Good to see you again energy. But there's never any like, man, we're not doing it right because we're not super close, or anything like that. There's never any like super hopes from the friend in common. It's just, it is what it is. This is my friend. That's my friend. That's the way it needs to be in polyamory too, y'all.
He's really
And if anything more emerges, it happens over time organically.
I will say, like, I'm glad I learned this lesson. It was a hard lesson for me to learn about, like, not having any expectations of what I would want from a meta. I do want to throw in the other side of it is I really do think there are some people who come into these meta relationships expecting that the person's not going to like them, expecting that that person's going to be hostile and unkind, and so they kind of come with this like wall up. They're just like, I know what you're going to be like, maybe because they've had bad meta interactions in the past,
Hmm.
or maybe because they're still holding on to mononormativity so much that it feels like competition,
Yeah.
right? That this they feel like they're actually losing something, and they just coming in with this kind of like negative energy toward that meta. So both things can happen, where you can come in with high hopes, and you can come in with like hopes that are too low. I hope that makes sense. I agree with Sunjata that it should be really just completely organic, and you just introduce people naturally. I would actually almost like prefer for people to meet in garden party settings as opposed to meeting in kitchen table settings.
Hmm.
Like you just happen to be at, something together. It's
Social
like
event.
a
Garden
social
party
event,
is at social
and you're
events.
like, hey, look, there goes my person. Y'all want to meet up? And then maybe y'all spring up some conversation at that social event. And it's less pressure in that way because
Hmm.
it's not just like the three of you meeting up together. There's less pressure. So I definitely think I've learned some lessons here. And in the future, I know how I'll introduce people who I am dating to Sunjata. And I know the kind of expectations I will have for people who he is in a relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think now's a good time to transition to our segment for today's show. And today's segment is relationship tools. So, one of the segments that we have is where we'll introduce a relationship tool that has been beneficial in our relationship. And the relationship tool that we want to talk about with y'all today is the idea of creating a bliss statement and shared values. You want to say some more about that?
No, I want you to.
Okay. So, basically, a bliss statement is, it's like a culture statement. Like, who do we want to be for one another, right? Who do we want to be for one another, and how do we want to move through the world? What values do we want to anchor our relationship? So, the shared values is where we'll list, and for us, it's five, where we'll list out like common values that we have, and then we kind of like we put those together to come up with five shared values. And then we had a conversation around, and we have a process that we went through where we looked at our values, and we answer certain questions around, again, who do we want to be for one another? Who do we want to be for one another during the good times? Who do we want to be for one another during the challenging times? How do we want to celebrate each other? How do we want to
Be
uh,
seen and perceived by others.
yeah. And we took that, all of that, and we created what we call a bliss statement. And the way that we use those things is that, we use them in when we have meetings to check in on our relationship. We have relationship check-ins. And when we have our relationship check-ins, we start there. We read our bliss statement, and we take a look at our shared values and we use those to anchor us. And we literally have conversations around what are we currently doing? How are we currently moving that feels in alignment with that? And it's a chance for us to pat each other on the back, give each other a high five, a hug, be all in the lovey doveys about like, man, we're doing it. We're living the way, we said we want to live for one another. And then we talk about misalignments. What are some blind spots that we, may not have noticed, or what's some of the things that we've been doing that aren't in alignment with that statement and those values. And what it does is it keeps us accountable. We're proactively managing our relationship at all times. We're intentional about this relationship, y'all. And we're intentional about keeping it blissful. And this is one of the ways that we do it.
Yeah, anytime we're feeling like not in bliss, how can we bring it back
Yeah.
into bliss? So we use this statement and these shared values to check in so that we have, like he said, an anchor, a place to say, this is where we don't feel aligned. How can we bring it back into alignment? And then we'll come up with some um, proposals. And I actually think of them as agreements. I think those are the things that we call agreements.
Right.
They're not necessarily what other people would call agreements, I think, because ours are very specific, I
Hmm.
think.
Hmm.
So we offer proposals, solutions, ways so that we can feel more back into alignment. And then every time we have a check in, we check on those things. We say, okay, how's this feeling? Do we feel like this helped us get back into alignment? Do you feel like it's helping us? Are we getting good at it? Do we feel like we're in alignment? So it's definitely a good place to start whenever we have our check-in meetings. And like he said, it's also a really good way to compliment each other.
Hmm.
It's a really good way to say, this is in our bliss statement, and I really love how you exemplified that when you did this
Yeah.
and when you said that. And it's like, we're not, you know, a lot of times we'll use these things to nitpick at what somebody said. And you said this and you said that. And we use it to be complimentary. You said this. And it warmed my heart. And
Hmm.
it's such a nice way to keep us grounded,
Yeah.
and a nice way to point out when we're doing things right.
Yeah. And in terms of when things aren't going so good, because we're human and it's going to happen, we're going to have tension, y'all. It happens. We have a lot of tension because that's human relating. And especially when you start bringing in other people into our lives, that's when we have the most, conflict and tension. And conflict and tension is not a bad thing. They're signals, they're signs that something is wrong. It's all about how you navigate that conflict and tension. And we have this process to help us navigate it in a healthy and like regenerative way that brings us back to each other and brings us back to the things that we love about each other and we love about our relationship. And the fact of the matter is, y'all, no one taught us how to live this way. No one taught us how to um you know relate in the ways that we relate. So it takes being intentional in terms of navigating it in healthy regenerative ways.
Yeah, and every time we repair a conflict, or if every time we have an issue and we repair it and feel good about it, it just brings us closer.
Mhm.
Sometimes we look at our check-in board and we look at all the things that are integrated, and we look at all the things that are no longer relevant, and we're like, wow, look at those things,
Yeah.
and it makes me feel like we can do hard things together. We
Hmm.
can really do anything together, and we'll be able to withstand, and our relationship is resilient and it feels strong and it feels good, and just knowing that feels secure.
Yeah. So hopefully you all can take something from everything we said and adopt it to your lives in some way that feels meaningful and come up with your own practice that is similar to what we just discussed. And for those of y'all who like what you heard and you're like, we want some support around that, we have a course. We have a course and we coach, other people in this dynamic in polyamorous or consensually non-monogamous, and even some people who want more liberative forms of monogamous relationships have been a part of our course and coaching program as well. So we'll leave details for that in the show notes, as well as the website is gogrowdialogue.com, where you can learn more.
I think what Sundar just said is such a great point, that we even help monogamous people deconstruct mononormativity,
Hmm.
and they can still stay monogamous. They
Hmm.
could still be monogamous because that's a valid choice.
Yeah.
Monogamy is a valid choice as far as I'm concerned. And him too. And
Mhm.
so we do help people just kind of try to be more free. and more liberated. And at the root,
At their most authentic selves within their monogamous relationships.
and at the root, that's the work that we are doing. That is what we're trying to get across. Not that you should be polyamorous, but that you should be free. You should be
Yeah.
authentic, and you should be as liberated as you can
Your
be.
whole self within your relationships.
So I hope this episode was helpful, especially if you're new. I hope this was a helpful thing for you, and I hope that you take some of this advice to heart and let us, do a little bit of the hard part for you. And just, we already did this. We
Yeah.
already we already experienced some of this heartache, so that you don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So as always, y'all, thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for rocking with us. And we'll see y'all next time. Love y'all. Peace. That's a wrap for this episode of Sunshine and Rainbows. We hope today's conversation sparked some new insights, deep reflections, or just gave you a fresh perspective on love and connection.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment, send us your questions, or share your own experiences. We might even feature them in a future episode.
And don't forget to subscribe to Sunshine and Rainbows on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you're vibing with us, please like, comment, share, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and keeps these conversations going.
Want more sunshine and rainbows? Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sunshine Rainbows for daily insights, behind the scenes moments, and updates on future episodes. You can get more in depth and intellectual with us on our Substack, sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. If you like what we're saying over there, consider becoming a paid subscriber to support all our liberation and anti-oppression efforts.
As always, thank you for rocking with us. We so appreciate the love and support. Until next time, we love y'all. Peace.